Hello, and welcome back to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin,
I'm Ericka Redic.
and we are back. Eric, I got one other sort of post-mortem on the whole White House, right? Trying to
Oh
manipulate
my
sunlight,
God.
right? As you pointed out on break, and folks, we do talk on break. Isn't that how the dinosaurs went extinct,
That's
Erica?
what I'm saying. So they think the science thinks that dinosaurs went extinct from a meteor hitting the earth and blocking out the sun.
And
I'm
blocking
sorry
out
for
the sun, right?
yelling.
Which, by the
Sorry.
way, this is the same White House that just can't. And folks, if you had the paper, just can't figure out how they just found cocaine in the White House, but they can figure out how to. Oh, you didn't hear that? Oh yeah, they just found
What?
cocaine in the White House. I mean, come on, everyone knows what this is. It just means that Hunter was visiting and he left some stuff there. All right. So there's cocaine in the White House, but they want to manipulate the sun because we're all going to end up as the Morlocks. Those are the people that live underground in H.G. Wells' Time Machine, folks.
Oh my
In any
God.
event, I had to. Sorry, I had to go there.
Dude,
I
I
know.
tried. That's why I was like trying to smile on the way back in for our for our podcast and radio listeners. I'm on the video like trying to smile.
Right. I get it. I get it. So I want to go to the Supreme Court because there were some such important decisions, right, in the Supreme Court, right? So the
Yeah.
first one is they've ended affirmative action, even though they haven't really ended affirmative action. We'll get to that in a second. They basically said on this, it wasn't the cake, it was the website design in Colorado that you can't force someone to, express the things that aren't there, that aren't
Their
theirs.
beliefs.
But I
Yeah.
want to focus a little bit about there is clearly a battle amongst the justices.
Yeah.
Not only do they rule against affirmative action, right? You have Justice Gorsuch gave a scathing rebuke of Sotomayor's. Sotomayor, so you figure my
Sotomayor.
pronunciation.
Yep.
Sotomayor's, Justice Sotomayor's dissent opinion.
Yep.
Right. First, well, actually, let's back up. First, you have Chief Justice Roberts, who comes out and says we need to reel back in these dissenting decisions. Not that you can't dissent, but it's getting way too personal. Right.
Yes.
Then you have Gorsuch taking on Sotomayor and basically said your dissent is stupid because you contradict yourself at several points and it doesn't even address the point, and you have this sort of high-minded stuff about why can't we all get along, and you're disadvantaging other people.
Yep.
And as Gorsuch points out, it's supposed to be an objective standard. And the government's not supposed to pick winners or losers, even though the colleges and Harvard in particular has been doing that. But then you have Justice Thomas, taking on Justice Brown Jackson. And you got to love this, calls her out on her quote unquote race-infused worldview. Are you following any of this? Or is it just me?
No, I've definitely been following it. The Supreme Court is actually a institution that I'm incredibly passionate about and pay very close attention to the cases that they choose to take, don't take, and the opinions. So yeah, we have no one should be surprised that an Obama appointee or a Biden appointee does not care about what the Constitution says and is instead writing their dissent based on their personal opinions rather than the objective truth of what words mean.
Well, it comes down to, right, that you have an originalist interpretation of the Constitution versus this whole concept that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. Right. Excuse me. It's not what it meant when it was founded, or when the Constitution was written. It's what does it mean in today's standard? But some of the acrimony between the justices, because you do understand that the last institution of the government that has any degree of credibility and any degree of legitimacy is the Supreme Court. So that's where they're coming after, right? It started with obviously Dobbs. Actually, it started way before Dobbs, but Dobbs certainly energized the progressive left, and now they're obviously coming back and saying, forget about even court packing. Right?
Yeah.
They're attacking. They're going after Alito. They're going after They haven't quite gone after Gorsuch yet, but they're going after Alito. They're certainly going after Clarence Thomas, because he's clearly, he's an Uncle Tom, which he's been called, right? Which is just, I mean, if that's not race baiting, I don't know what is.
Oh yeah,
right? But
well, the left is the most. They've always been the most racist of them all, and so we shouldn't be shocked that they would be attacking him in that way.
and then you've got Obama who jumps in to question the decision, and you got to love Senator Tim Scott, who basically called Obama's reaction. Actually, it was Michelle Obama and Barack Obama's reaction to the Supreme Court decisions. Tim Scott calls their reaction a lie from the pit of hell. Don't believe me? Look it up, folks.
Good for
Not
him.
my words. That's his words.
Good for him.
Right. So, but what I want to get to is, this is now the final battle, right? As we've talked about, before we're a democracy, and we're not really a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. But even before we're a constitutional republic, we're a nation of laws. And if you want to get rid of or change the country, the first thing, or really, the baseline is, after you've gotten rid of all the icons and the, memorials, and you rewrite the history, is you get rid of the laws. And the first thing you do to do that is you get rid of the people who enforce the laws. Initially, we thought that was just the police, right? It is law enforcement. But it's also judges.
Yeah.
And the pinnacle of legitimacy or of legal foundation of this country, the laws, is the Supreme Court. So they're clearly going to now. So the Supreme Court is now. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it is the next great battleground, and maybe the last one. What do you think?
I would say it's been a battleground for a long time. And the evidence of that is the number of liberal justices that we have on the court. So they took at every
you only got 3.
That's 3 too many. If there are 3 justices on the Supreme Court who don't believe that English is English and
Brett
that
Kavanaugh
words mean what they mean. Yeah, exactly. Gorsuch too. He has sided with the liberal justices in order to try to maintain some kind of a
no. Wait a minute. First of all, I'm a big Gorsuch fan, as I was a big Scalia fan. You have to understand something. If you are correctly applying the law, it means there are going to be decisions that you don't personally agree with. But the law is the law, right? So those times, so I have more of an issue with Kavanaugh, who generally tends to.
So hold on though, Robert.
Okay, go ahead.
The Supreme
I know this is a passion area for you.
The Supreme Court's job is to determine whether or not a law is constitutional or not. Not whether or not it's fair, not whether or not it's good, not whether it's applied correctly or not. Congress's job is to create laws. The SCOTUS, the Supreme Court's job, is to determine whether or not a law is constitutional. So I don't care what any of those Supreme Court justices think about any of the laws. That's Congress's job. If people don't like the law, then go back to Congress and change it. We do not make, change, or manipulate laws through the Supreme Court. Their job, one job, is to determine whether or not something is constitutional or not. So I don't care what their opinions are. I don't care if they like it or not.
You were saying that Gorsuch sided with some of the liberal justices in a few of the cases, and I said that's right. And frankly, I don't remember the cases in particular. He's supposed to. It's supposed to be an objective application, an objective standard, and that doesn't mean if a law is passed and the intent of the law is clear. And by the way, Congress's job is not to pass laws. Congress's job is to pass clear laws. That's, fault 101, because they don't do that, and they defer to the administrative state. And we already talked about that.
Yeah, we
whole Chevron
know that already.
That whole Chevron deference ruling, where they let the deep state or the administrative state really interpret laws which they're not supposed to.
Well, and that's more evidence that there is an attack that the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. So when you have the Supreme Court at times over the years, saying separate but equal, and then oh my God, these same people who are attacking the Supreme Court now and saying, oh, we have to uphold precedent in abortion, we have to uphold precedent. Should we have upheld decisions that said it was okay for Black people to be treated separately as long as it was equal?
Plessy versus
Ferguson.
Plessy versus Ferguson.
Are we gonna say that loving was not legitimate? Where now interracial marriage is okay? Okay, I'm gonna.
All right. Take a break. So here's my next question for you, because obviously the three big decisions that they put down was obviously ruling against Harvard's affirmative action. I think it was also, was it UNC? I think it was two. One was public, one was private. Obviously Harvard being the private institution. The second ruling really was on this whole website designer in Colorado who went against her religion to build it wasn't that they wouldn't build a website. It was that it was the language on the website expressed a view that was contrary to her religious faith. Right.
Correct.
So clearly religious freedom wins out there. And then obviously the whole big thing about the student loan forgiveness is declared unconstitutional, as everyone has now heard. I'm sure you're sick about it, as even Nancy Pelosi, Queen of the Damned, Nancy Pelosi basically, you like that? You like that? Right. Nancy Pelosi basically said it takes an act of Congress where it does. But here's where I want to go with this. So in the decision, here's what most people didn't see. So the Supreme Court delivers the decision, students for fair admissions versus, Harvard. The court ruled the following: that colleges and universities may consider in admissions decisions, quote, an applicant's discussion on how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. So while the courts or the Supreme Court ruled against this affirmative action in this case, that language is so big you can drive a tractor trailer through.
Literally.
Because you know what's going to happen. You know that now the colleges are now going to find a different way to use race in their admission standard. What am I missing? Am I wrong here? Because
No.
That language is so vague that now you're going to have the Harvards and the other elite Ivy League institutions change admission standards. What do you think?
I think that they are going to figure out a way around the rules no matter what.
Right.
But I love that Justice Clarence Thomas, I believe, wrote the dissenting opinion that first time affirmative action went through the Supreme Court. And he said, I'm trying to remember the exact language, but it was something like, basically, it's already against the law to discriminate. We don't need affirmative action. I don't want to bastardize his words, but back then he said, the original opinion was something like, I long for the day, or that we don't need a law that prevents people from being racist, prejudiced, and discriminatory, basically. And in his dissent, he said, yeah, we already live there. It's already against the law to discriminate against people based on these things. We don't need another law that actually creates discrimination. Affirmative action tries to correct previous discrimination with current discrimination. And so,
right, but of course they do.
So now we've said, okay, that law is unconstitutional because it creates discrimination, right? So okay,
wait a minute. We've talked about this. Justice is rear facing. And it's always trying to right a wrong in the past. Social justice warriors, all that nonsense, right? That's what one side thinks. Freedom is always forward facing, and there's going to be a little bit of injustice in it because people are, humans are flawed, and they have weaknesses and they have lapses in judgment, right? But I agree with you that affirmative action really entrenched racial disparity. It didn't remove it, but it was, if you're going to argue the other side, which I'm not, but I certainly know what the argument is, that they are trying to right a historical wrong by visiting a current wrong, if you will, discrimination in admissions. Let me read you actually Jackson's. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I want you to come back to this, but you mentioned Michelle Obama. So Michelle Obama,
only if I have to,
in her statement, actually repudiated her own statement. So she made a comment about how it was so terrible that when she was at Yale or whatever
she was at Princeton.
Sorry.
Michelle Robinson, look up her thesis. It's there.
How she got treated like she might not belong there because, she's black and got favored, whatever. And so she wasn't taken seriously as a black woman and blah, 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 and whatever. It's like, okay, but now you're saying the thing that actually creates the perception that you might not have deserved to get there in the first place is the thing that you want to uphold. So why not just make it so that everyone who's actually there has the same level playing field, and they aren't given special privileges and special consideration? What better way to make sure that there is no perception that you didn't deserve to be there than to get rid of the thing that creates the perception that you might not deserve to be there?
Okay, you need to simplify that for me, because I mean, I hear you, but I get it. But look, one side focuses on the equality of opportunity, not the equality of outcome. The progressives want an equality of outcome, like we're all going to wear, gray burlap sacks and we're going to eat potatoes, right? I mean, that's basically, that's basically what this is.
Lower everyone's quality of living, so it sucks for everyone.
Right, rather than, and you're talking about a meritocracy and that kind of a thing. Look, it's really simple. If I have someone who's going to operate on me as a physician, I don't want the guy that finished at the bottom of the class, and I don't want the guy or girl or woman, whatever, who was there because of some, racial quota. I want the best person in the world to be operating on me, and that's a pretty easy standard for people to understand and wrap their heads around. And race-based admissions, for the longest time, while the intention was to right a historical wrong, all it did was visit more wrong now on a larger group of people.
That's
which
right.
I guess one side thinks that's okay, but I'm sure not on that side. Lord Benjamin has given us the high sign, which means we got to go in our bourgeois capitalist way, make some money this Independence Day celebration week. Ericka, I love talking to you.
It's so much fun.
Exactly. Folks, we'll be right back, and then we're going to jump over into This Is My Flag. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.